Ever get that feeling like we're barely scratching the surface of like truly bizarre stuff? This unexplained events that just make you stop and think.
Like there's a whole other reality operating right under our noses.
Exactly. And that's exactly where we're going today. We're diving deep into a truly remarkable UFO encounter happened in the skies over Mexico way back in 1975.
And what makes this case particularly intriguing is that we're not just dealing with some fleeting visual sighting, but we have an audio recording of the actual event unfolding.
A first-hand account from the pilot himself, packed with some seriously thought-provoking details.
So we're not relying on secondhand reports or blurry photographs this time.
Nope, we're going straight to the source. And our mission for this deep dive is pretty simple. We're going to break down the key elements of this pilot's incredible story, analyze the evidence, and explore just what this encounter might mean.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so let's set the scene. This whole thing revolves around a young pilot named Carlos de los Santos.
He was, what, just 20 years old at the time?
Yeah, just a young guy. It was May 3rd, 1975, and he was piloting his small PA-24 airplane. A Piper, a fairly compact four-seater aircraft.
God.
He was on a return flight from Lázaro Cárdenas back to Mexico City, had flown someone down there and was heading back.
So a routine flight, nothing out of the ordinary.
Absolutely. And to make things even more, well, normal, the weather was perfect. Clear skies, great visibility, ideal flying conditions.
And he was flying at a pretty standard altitude for a small plane, right?
Yeah, he was cruising below 3,000 meters. Just to give you a comparison, those big Boeing 747s you see, they usually cruise way up at like 10,000 meters.
Makes sense.
So Carlos was relatively low. The distance between those two cities is only about 370 kilometers, so even in a small plane, it's only about an hour's flight.
An hour, huh?
Yeah. And then, about an hour into his flight, things start to take a very unexpected turn. As he was approaching Mexico City, the extraordinary, well, it kind of just happened.
So what exactly did he see?
Well, something on his left caught his eye. He described it as a grayish-white object, oblong in shape, and here's where it gets interesting. It was about 4 meters long.
4 meters?
Yeah. Now, to give you some context, his entire plane was only around 7 meters long.
Wow, that's a significant size. Almost as long as his plane.
Exactly. And this thing just kind of drifted closer and positioned itself directly above his left wing, just hovering there, almost like it was attached.
That's got to be unnerving, to say the least.
Yeah, and get this, he even noticed what looked like a glass area at the front of the object. Made him wonder if it was some kind of cockpit.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? A cockpit suggests someone's piloting that thing.
I know, right? And before he could even fully process what was happening on his left, he glanced over to his right, and guess what?
Another one?
Another object, identical to the first. Same grayish-white color, same oblong shape, and it mirrored the first one, positioning itself above his right wing.
Like they were escorting him or something.
It's straight out of a sci-fi movie. And, his first thought was, could these be other aircraft? Some experimental drones, maybe? But, back in 1975, drones weren't exactly a common thing.
True. And the way they were just hovering.
Yeah, that was the really strange part. They seemed to just float there. No visible means of propulsion, no wings, no engines or anything that he could see.
Like defying gravity.
Yeah, and remember, these things are positioned mere meters from his plane. It was a close encounter, for sure.
And it's about to get a lot closer.
You're telling me. Because just as he's trying to make sense of the two objects on his wings, a third one appears.
A third one? Where did that come from?
This one approaches rapidly from the front and slightly above, and he's thinking, oh man, this is not good.
A collision course?
Exactly. So Carlos, fearing a collision, he instinctively pushes down on the control stick to try and get out of the way.
A natural reaction.
But the third object, it just kept coming. It flies right over his propeller, and this is crazy, without any apparent impact that he could see. It positions itself underneath his plane, attached.
Like it just stuck itself to the bottom of his plane.
He looks down through whatever visibility he has, and there it is. Like it's magnetically stuck there, and he can feel it dragging his aircraft.
So now he has 3 of these things around his plane.
Yeah, and here's the really mind-blowing part. This entire sequence, from spotting the first object to the third one attaching itself, it all happened in about 10 seconds.
10 seconds. That's incredibly fast.
Blink and you'd miss it. And the immediate consequence, he loses complete control of the aircraft. Imagine that. Your controls just stop responding.
That would be terrifying.
It would be. So what does he do? He puts out a Mayday call. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. He reports the situation, gives his call sign, location, and the crucial bit: his aircraft is out of control and surrounded by 3 unidentified flying objects.
And this is the audio recording you mentioned earlier.
That's it. And you can hear the urgency in his voice. It's online. You can listen to it yourself. It's chilling. And then, right after this distress call, something even more extraordinary happens.
What happens?
The plane starts ascending rapidly and uncontrollably. It just shoots upwards so fast that Carlos is actually pinned back against his seat.
Like a rocket taking off.
Yeah, exactly. And those 3 objects, they stay put, still seemingly attached or right alongside his aircraft, from below 3,000 meters to 4,500 meters in practically no time at all.
Wow. So now he's climbing rapidly out of control with 3 UFOs in tow.
That's exactly what's happening. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the ascent stops, and the aircraft enters a slow, terrifying free fall.
Oh man, I can only imagine the feeling.
He thought that was it, but then, as he's falling, the 2 objects on his wings detach and fly away. He didn't actually see the one underneath detach, but right at that moment, he regains control of the plane.
Like they just let him go.
Just like that. It's like someone flipped a switch. He gets back on the radio, connects with air traffic control, and they start making arrangements for an emergency landing at Mexico City International. Thankfully, it was pretty close by.
At least something was going right.
But you know what? Of course, there's another problem. When he tries to deploy the landing gear, nothing. The wheels wouldn't come down.
Another malfunction on top of everything else.
So he's got to get this plane on the ground no matter what. He spots a grassy area next to the runway and decides to attempt an emergency landing there. They shut down the airport, scramble the emergency services, and just as the plane's about to touch down on that grass, the landing gear suddenly deploys, all on its own.
No way.
He manages the safe landing, but as you can imagine, as soon as the plane stopped, he jumps out and runs, just gets as far away from that plane as possible. Can you blame him?
After all of that, not at all. So what happens after this incredible landing?
Well, the aftermath is chaos, of course. The airport's shut down, there are reports of UFOs, the media's going crazy, and the Mexican aviation authorities, they've got a lot of questions for Carlos.
They have to investigate naturally.
Exactly. They want to know what happened. And given the incredible nature of his story, they have to consider everything, including whether he hallucinated the whole thing.
Standard procedure.
Right. So they do all the tests, blood, urine, everything. And the results come back negative. No alcohol, no drugs, no medical condition that could have caused hallucinations.
So that leaves them with 2 options.
Either Carlos actually encountered UFOs, or he made this elaborate story up.
And as we know, pilots put their careers on the line reporting UFO sightings.
It's a huge risk, so why would he make something like this up? But here's where the whole case takes a very significant turn. Remember that Mayday call?
Yeah.
Well, when the investigators reviewed air traffic control records, they discovered that radar had actually tracked an unidentified flying object near Carlos's plane during his distress call. Radar confirmation, it's a game changer.
Wow, that's big. So it wasn't just his word.
Nope. At first, they thought maybe it was just another plane flying where it shouldn't have been. But then they looked closer at the radar data, and it showed this object making a sudden, sharp turn in the opposite direction, a move that's physically impossible for any normal aircraft.
Like it was defying the laws of physics.
Yeah, exactly. And that radar evidence was enough to get some very important people interested.
Like who?
The U.S. got wind of it, and you know what that means? NASA experts were dispatched to Mexico to investigate.
So NASA got involved. That's serious. What were they most concerned about?
Their main worry was that this could be some crazy, advanced, secret technology from another country or something else entirely. So they carefully analyzed the radar data, listened to Carlos's account, and came to a conclusion.
And what did they conclude?
They said that the object's flight characteristics were way beyond anything that existed in 1975.
So they basically admitted it was a UFO, even if they didn't say those exact words.
Exactly. It was an indirect acknowledgement from a very reputable scientific organization. But wait, there's more. Because this story gets even weirder. After this wild experience in the air, Carlos has another encounter on the ground.
This sounds familiar. Is this the Men in Black part of the story?
You got it. Just a few days after the incident, Carlos is driving, and this black car forces him to pull over. 2 men in black suits and sunglasses approach his car.
Classic.
And they warn him not to talk about what he saw. Then they just drive off.
Spooky.
Yeah. And it's unclear whether they spoke Spanish or Portuguese, but the message was clear. Keep quiet. And it worked. Carlos stayed silent for 30 years. He didn't speak publicly about his experience until 2010.
That's a long time to keep such an incredible story to yourself.
I know, right? So let's go back to NASA for a second.
Right.
Why were they so convinced that this tech was beyond anything on Earth in 1975?
Good question.
Yeah.
What was it about the UFO that was just so far ahead?
Well, first of all, remember how those two objects were hovering right above his wings?
Yeah, just a couple of meters away.
Well, think about that. Those wings are constantly moving, tilting, and these objects manage to stay in perfect position without touching. To do that, you'd need a crazy good real-time radar system and incredible computing power.
Yeah, like some kind of advanced autopilot.
Exactly. And that tech just didn't exist in 1975. Even today, it would be a challenge to get something that small to maneuver so precisely.
So that was point number one.
Right. And the second thing was that crazy maneuver on radar, that sudden, sharp turn in the opposite direction. It breaks all the rules of physics. We just don't have anything that can move like that.
So it wasn't just unidentified, it was practically impossible.
Pretty much. And the source we're looking at, it uses that common classification system for UFO encounters to categorize Carlos's experience.
Oh yeah, the 9 categories.
Exactly. And Carlos's encounter with the objects being so close, it's probably a Category 1 a sighting. The most basic level.
Just seeing a UFO, no physical evidence or contact.
Right. And the source goes on to describe the other categories, just for context. Second kind is when there's physical evidence left behind. Third kind is seeing the occupants of the UFO.
Okay.
And then it goes up from there. Abduction is fourth kind, communication is fifth kind, and so on. All the way to a ninth kind, where we're basically coexisting with aliens.
It's interesting to think about the different levels of interaction.
Yeah. And as the source points out, most reported encounters are Category 1, with only a few reaching Category 3, where people see the occupants.
Makes sense. But there's another interesting element to this story, right? The location.
Oh, yeah. This whole thing happened pretty close to a well-known UFO hotspot, the Popocatépetl volcano.
I've heard about that. Lots of sightings around there.
Tons of them. People have seen objects going in and out of the volcano. Some even have footage.
What do people think is happening there?
Theories range from underground alien bases to UFOs refueling on geothermal energy.
Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, and this volcano is not too far from where Carlos had his encounter, so it makes you wonder if there's a connection.
Could be. So as we wrap this up, what are the key takeaways from this incredible event?
Well, we have a very believable UFO encounter reported by a trained pilot. We have radar data showing an object doing things our technology can't do. And it all happened near a UFO hotspot. Plus, there's that whole Men in Black thing adding to the mystery.
That's a lot to take in.
It really is. And here's something else to think about. If we have radar evidence and all these sightings near the volcano, what are these UFOs up to? Why are they here, even if we don't know exactly what they're doing? And what does an event like this, studied by NASA, tell us about what we don't know about our own world and the universe? It's a lot to ponder.
It certainly is. Definitely gives you a new perspective on things.
For sure. And that's what we're here for, right? To dive deep into these mysteries and see what we can find. Thanks for joining us on this one. It's been a wild ride.